Thank you very much, Nisi Imano there. We are taking over and ready to bring you the latest in the world of business. As you've heard, my name is Betty Kiptum. Now, we want to start with a conversation on matters the blue economy. The African blue economy is currently valued at $296 billion and is providing about 49 million jobs across the continent. The potential is way much higher, but of course the challenges that the ocean is facing are just slowing down the realization of this potential. And to have this conversation is Mika Odido. He is the coordinator of the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, IOC Africa. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. Let's start with why the blue economy is important and why we need to harness it.
The blue economy has the potential to contribute significantly to improving the livelihoods of our coastal populations. Not just the coastal populations, but also the inland populations. Many of us, when we think of oceans, we only think of the beautiful beaches and the fish, but it is more than this. The ocean basically provides the opportunity for transporting goods. More than 90% of the world's goods is transported through the oceans, and it offers a significantly cheaper means of doing this. The ocean has potential for other resources like minerals, oil and gas. We also have things like seaweed being cultivated in the ocean shores. The oceans also significantly control our climate. The climate for this region depends very much on what happens in the oceans, on the monsoon winds, and on the temperatures of the water in the oceans. We can make much better forecast of the climate and the weather by using the ocean parameters. But there are challenges. One of the key ones for our region is the limited capacity. We have relatively fewer experts in the region and relatively fewer facilities that look at ocean research. We need to develop this to be able to harness the ocean economy. We also have challenges of pollution. Most of our waste end up in the ocean, either coming through the rivers or going directly from the coastal area into the oceans. Some of the ships that traverse our oceans also dump wastes in the ocean. So this is something that we really need to think of how to address to be able to ensure that the oceans continue giving us resources that we can be able to use.
And of course, most of the challenges, especially the pollution bit, as you've said, it is a direct result of human behavior. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So how can both governments, the private sector, how can they come together to remedy this problem?
You can look at it from two perspectives. First of all is the changing in human behavior. But this really needs humans to have better understanding of the oceans and how it contributes to our health. Secondly, having regulations in place. In many of our countries, we have these regulations in place, but then we also have to have implementation. One of the key challenges with oceans is that the water or the fish do not recognize boundaries. If you dump wastes in the waters off the Mombasa coast, the currents will carry them either north or south depending on the season, and they'll either end up on the Somali coast or on the Tanzanian coasts. Similarly, the fish don't recognize boundaries. They don't need a visa to travel to another country. Therefore, international cooperation is really important for managing of the ocean resources. And this is where the UN comes in. We provide the platform for the countries to be able to work together. This week, we are having a meeting here in Nairobi, looking at how African countries can work together to be able to harness their ocean resources. How can we put our efforts together? You know, working alone, you won't really go far with oceans. You can clean up your beaches, you can clean up your water, but as long as your neighbor is not doing the same, is fertile. So cooperation is really, really important.
At the IOC, you told me before we started that you do a lot of scientific research.
Yes,
what have you achieved so far from the research that you're doing?
Globally, one of the major things we have achieved is setting up an ocean observing system for the world. It looks at different parameters of the oceans and looks at how we can be able to use these parameters either to protect the ecosystem, to better predict weather, to better focus the motion of the oceans. Another area that we've worked on quite well in recent years is developing an early warning system for ocean hazards. Some of you may have heard of the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004, which led to devastating impact on most of the coastal areas of Africa, including here in Kenya, where some people lost their lives along the coast in Malindi. We've now worked to establish an Indian Ocean tsunami early warning system, which looks at not just the tsunamis, but other ocean-related hazards such as storm surges. We are looking at developing similar early warning systems also for other ocean basins. Currently, we are working on implementing what we call the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. During this decade, we are looking at developing transformative science to enable us better harness the ocean resources. The ocean is one of the least studied ecosystem, and this really is sad considering that they occupy 75% of the Earth's surface and contributes significantly to its resources. If you look at, compare some statistics, the deepest part of the ocean is about 10 kilometers deep, which is the same as the highest part on Earth, Mount Everest, which is 10 kilometers high. We've had more than 4,000-5,000 people have been to the top of Mount Everest. We've had less than 10 people who've been to the deepest part of the oceans. Up to 2 years ago, less than 15% of the ocean bottom had been mapped to high resolution. In the last couple of years, we've worked very hard and ensured that now something like 25-27% is mapped to high resolution. If you compare this to, for example, the moon, which is now almost completely mapped to high resolution, you see the challenges that we face. We really need to work harder on this. We estimate that more than 1 million species in the oceans have not yet been recognized, have been identified and mapped. So you see, there's quite a lot that we still need to do. It's an area that provides a lot of opportunities that I really encourage our youth to go into.
So as we harness these opportunities that exist, of course, as you said, that the ocean is very important in terms of the climate, regulating the climate of the Earth. And how do we ensure that we are sustainably harnessing these resources?
First of all, we need to understand the oceans. We need to map the resources. That is really, really key. Then we need to develop the tools to be able to harness the resources. We need to have the capacity. The bottom of the ocean, we have very high pressures. So to get equipment to the bottom of the ocean, we really need to develop special technology that will be able to withstand the high water pressure that we have at the bottom. So in a nutshell, we need to map the resources and we need to develop the tools to be able to harness the resources. And this needs finances, it needs effort on the parts of our governments.
And how are you seeing that? Is the money being allocated to this direction?
Progress is being made. Many countries are seeing more and more the importance of oceans. Here in Kenya, we hosted the Global Blue Economy Conference in 2018. And Kenya has been a major player in the blue economy sphere. Kenya is a member of the high-level panel, which brings together about 10 countries that have committed themselves to ensuring that the oceans are developed well. Kenya is also patron of the Kenyan president, patron of the UN Ocean Decade. And they bring in a lot of knowledge and experiences that they are able to share with other countries, not just regionally, but also globally.
Right.
So in a nutshell, yes, progress is being made. More needs to be done.
More needs to be done.
Yes.
So as we come to a close of the conversation, what do you hope to achieve in this meeting you are having at the end of this week?
At the end of this week, we are hoping that we will look at what are the common areas that we need to work on together as African countries. What are the skills that we have, what are the resources that we have, and what are the gaps? And how can we address these gaps? How can we be able to work together? Like I said, more than 70% of the oceans is international waters. So to be able to manage them, we need to work together. And like I said, the oceans don't recognize boundaries, so we need to really work together to be able to harness the resources. And I'm confident that by the end of the week, we'll have come up with a roadmap on how we'll be able to move forward in developing our capacities and in using the capacity that we have to be able to harness the ocean economy.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mika Odido, for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Mika Odido is the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission Coordinator for Africa, and we've been talking about matters blue economy, how to harness the oceans and to make sure that we are sustainably using those resources.